When a Baltimore cardiologist gave the eulogy at his grandmother's funeral in 1998, he told the congregation her Friday dinners were healthier than anything he had prescribed in 40 years of practice. She had cooked the same thing every Friday for 11 years. She spent less than 18 cents a meal. What she cooked is number 3 on this list. Number 7 was so cheap that butchers sometimes gave it away to keep it from rotting. And number 2 was a dish that a generation of American men were embarrassed to admit they loved, until a celebrity chef turned it into a $60 entree in 2018. These 20 dinners fed the country through a decade when fish was the cheapest protein in the grocery store. They fed Catholic families on Fridays and factory families on Thursdays. They came out of tin cans and off of riverbanks and from the scraps other people threw away. Let us count down the 20 forgotten cheap fish dinners from the 1950s that families swore by. Number 20. Tuna noodle casserole. A can of tuna, a can of cream of mushroom soup, a bag of egg noodles, a handful of frozen peas, baked in a Pyrex dish with a handful of buttered breadcrumbs on top. The whole thing cost less than 30 cents in 1955 and fed a family of 5. A mother in Ohio made the same tuna noodle casserole every Wednesday night for 27 years. Her children moved across the country and her husband passed in 1979. But she still made the full casserole every Wednesday, ate one portion, and packaged the rest into foil trays she walked down the street to the widow next door. She said stopping felt like giving up on Wednesday itself. Today, this dish is treated as a punchline. In 1955, it was how a woman refused to disappear. Number 19. Salmon patties. A can of pink salmon mashed with a cracker, an egg, and a spoonful of minced onion. Shaped into patties and fried in a cast iron skillet until the outside turned golden and the inside stayed moist. The patties fed 4 people and came together in under 15 minutes. The soft bones in the can were mashed right into the patty, adding a calcium boost that mothers did not know about, and doctors now recommend specifically for bone density. Every grandmother in America made salmon patties. Most of their grandchildren have never tasted one. Number 18. Sardines on toast. A tin of sardines in oil, drained and laid across a slice of toasted white bread, topped with a squeeze of lemon and a dash of pepper. That was dinner. A tin cost 9 cents in 1954. The whole meal came together in 90 seconds and delivered more omega-3 fatty acids than most people eat in a month today. Nobody under 40 eats sardines anymore. A fish that fed millions of Americans for less than a dime is now a specialty item sold at gourmet shops for $6 a tin. But wait until you hear what families were doing with number 15. Number 17. Creamed tuna on toast. A can of tuna simmered in a white sauce made of butter, flour, and milk, spooned over toast points. The sauce coated the tuna in something creamy, and the toast soaked up every drop. The whole meal cost about 20 cents and was often eaten on Fridays when Catholic families could not have meat. The dish was so common in American cafeterias, army mess halls, and school kitchens that a generation of men came home from the Korean War already knowing how to make it. They taught their wives. The wives taught their daughters. And then it stopped. Number 16. Pickled herring. In Scandinavian American communities across Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the Dakotas, pickled herring was a refrigerator staple. It came in a jar, swimming in vinegar, sugar, and onions, eaten straight from the jar on a slice of rye bread with butter. A jar cost less than 50 cents and lasted 2 weeks. A grandfather in Duluth ate pickled herring and rye every morning for 43 years and refused to eat breakfast on any trip that did not stock it. His daughter started packing jars in her suitcase when she visited him. When he died in 1994, she buried a jar with him. Nobody stocks the jars anymore. Nobody misses them except the people who remember. Number 15. Fish head soup. In Portuguese-American communities along the New England coast, fish head soup was the dish that wasted nothing. A fish head bought from the dock for a nickel, simmered in water with onion, garlic, tomato, and a pinch of saffron. After an hour, the broth turned deep and rich and carried every flavor the fish had to give. The meat around the cheeks and the collar was picked out and eaten. The broth was served over stale bread. Fishmongers used to give the heads away to anyone who asked. Then restaurants started buying them for stock. Then the heads became a specialty item. A generation of recipes died the moment the fish heads stopped being free. Here is what the food industry does not want you to think about. Fish was the cheapest protein in 1955. A tin of sardines cost less than a loaf of bread. A can of salmon cost less than a dozen eggs. Today, fish is the most expensive protein in the grocery store. A pound of fresh salmon can cost $15. A piece of cod costs $12. The category flipped completely in 2 generations, and it happened because the fishing industry consolidated. Processors took over, and supermarkets replaced the corner fishmonger with a refrigerated case full of imported product. The fish did not become expensive by accident. It was made expensive, and the dishes that kept working families fed on pennies a day disappeared along with the prices that made them possible. Number 14. Smelts fried whole. Smelts are small silver fish about the size of a man's finger. Families who lived near the Great Lakes caught them by the bucket during spring runs. You cleaned them, dredged them in seasoned flour, and fried them in hot oil until crispy. Then you ate them whole, bones, tails, and all. A bucket cost nothing if you caught them. A pound at the market cost less than 30 cents. They were eaten with your fingers at a kitchen table covered in newspaper. The crunch was the whole point. No part of the fish was wasted because no part needed to be. Number 13. Canned mackerel cakes. A can of mackerel mashed with cracker crumbs, an egg, and a diced onion, shaped into patties and fried like salmon cakes, but half the cost. A can cost 15 cents in 1956. The cakes fed a family of 4 for less than a quarter. Mackerel has a stronger flavor than salmon, and children complained about it. Mothers made it anyway because the math worked. Nutritionists now rank canned mackerel among the cheapest and healthiest proteins available. Nobody buys it. The cans still sit on grocery store shelves, largely ignored. Number 12. Perch pan-fried in butter. Families who lived within walking distance of a creek, a lake, or a river ate perch the way suburban families ate hamburger. A string of perch, caught in an afternoon, cleaned at the kitchen sink, dredged in flour, and fried in butter until the skin crackled. Perch cost nothing if you caught them. The only equipment needed was a fishing pole and a cast iron skillet. When suburban development pushed families away from the creeks and lakes that fed them, perch disappeared from the American dinner table. Number 11 suffered the same fate, but for a different reason. Number 11. Creamed finnan haddie. Smoked haddock poached in milk, then flaked into a cream sauce made from the poaching liquid thickened with butter and flour. Served over toast or boiled potatoes. Finnan haddie cost about 30 cents a pound in 1954. The dish was the Sunday breakfast of Scottish and Irish-American families along the New England coast. The smoke from the haddock perfumed the whole house. When commercial smoking operations consolidated in the 1970s, finnan haddie became harder to find and more expensive. The dish did not die from neglect, it died from supply. Real fish did not disappear because families stopped wanting it. It disappeared because the economic structure that delivered it collapsed. The corner fishmonger got pushed out by supermarket chains. Regional smokehouses got bought up by conglomerates and shut down. Local canneries closed when processing moved overseas. The fish never went away. The system that made cheap fish accessible to working families was dismantled piece by piece over 2 decades. And then nutritionists started telling everyone to eat more fish for their heart, their brain, their joints. The same people who had been priced out of the one protein that could have saved their health were told to buy $15 salmon fillets from grocery stores that never stocked sardines in the first place. Number 10. Fish chowder, a pot of diced potatoes, onion, celery, and any white fish simmered in milk and butter with salt and pepper. Any fish worked. Cod, haddock, pollock, whatever was cheapest that week. A pot cost less than $1 and fed 8 people. A church mother in Gloucester kept a cracked enamel pot just for chowder and refused to use it for anything else. When she died in 1982, her daughter inherited it and uses it to this day. Oyster crackers went in the bowl at the end for texture. Chowder was the ultimate use what you have meal, and it produced something that tasted far more complex than its ingredients had any right to suggest. Number 9. Fish fry with cornmeal crust. In the South, fish fry night was Friday. Whole small fish or fillets, dredged in cornmeal seasoned with salt, pepper, and a pinch of cayenne, then fried in hot oil until the crust turned the color of a penny. Served with hush puppies, coleslaw, and white bread. Catfish cost less than $1 a pound. The oil was reused until it could not be reused anymore. A fish fry fed 20 people for under $5. The cornmeal crust was the secret. It produced a crunch that flour could not match. Today, catfish costs $8 a pound. The fish fry survives in pockets of the rural South, held together by church groups and family traditions. Everywhere else, it has become a restaurant experience priced at $30 a plate. Number 8 is where the story gets embarrassing. Number 8. Kippered herring for breakfast. Smoked herring heated in a pan with a little butter, served with a poached egg and a slice of buttered toast. A breakfast that cost less than a quarter and delivered enough protein and omega-3 fatty acids to keep a factory worker going until lunch. A steel worker in Pittsburgh named Frank kept a tin of kippers in his lunch pail for 31 years and ate them cold at his bench every single day. When the mill closed in 1983, the corner store that stocked his tins closed 6 months later. He switched to cereal. He told his wife it was the saddest breakfast he had ever eaten. Every corner store sold kippered herring in tins once. Now, Americans eat cereal. Number 7. Shad roe. Shad roe is the egg sac of a fish that used to run up American rivers in such numbers that fishermen scooped them out by the barrel. In spring, the roe was the cheapest delicacy in the country. Butchers sometimes gave it away to keep it from spoiling. You sautéed it in butter with a squeeze of lemon and a rasher of bacon on the side. The texture was rich and creamy and completely unlike anything else. A portion cost about 15 cents in 1954. Today, shad roe, when you can find it, costs $40 a pound. The rivers were dammed. The runs collapsed. The dish that working families ate as a spring treat became a luxury served in Manhattan restaurants for 6 weeks a year. This is the fish the butchers gave away for free. Now you know why it is gone. Number 6. Pan-fried trout. Trout caught from a stream, cleaned, dredged in cornmeal or flour, and fried in bacon grease. The skin crisped up golden and the flesh stayed moist and pink. In Appalachia and the Ozarks, families ate trout the way city families ate chicken. A creel of trout cost nothing if you caught them. The technique was simple enough that children learned it young. When you grow up eating a fish that costs nothing and takes 10 minutes to cook, you do not understand why anyone would order trout at a restaurant for $28. But by the 1970s, most of those families had moved away from the streams that fed them. And the dish at number 5 used to cost a New England family less than a nickel. Almost nobody under 50 cooks a whole fish anymore. The skill has not been passed down because the format that preserved it, the weekly family fish dinner, no longer exists in most American households. Fish has become a restaurant food, ordered by people who do not know how to scale, gut, or fillet. The knowledge that used to be routine is now specialized, and the inexpensive, nutritious, endlessly variable category of food that fed working families through the 1950s has been replaced by one expensive cut of one expensive fish, served once or twice a month, if at all. Number 5. Codfish balls. Salt cod flaked and mixed with mashed potato, shaped into balls and deep fried until golden. A New England Sunday morning tradition that cost almost nothing and fed a large family for breakfast. The balls came out of the fryer hot and crisp and hollow in a way that made you want to eat 6 of them before anyone else got to the table. Served with ketchup and a cup of coffee. Boston families made them every Sunday for 100 years. Most Boston families now have never made them once. Number 4. Fried clams. Fresh clams dug from tidal flats, shucked, dredged in cornmeal, and fried in hot oil until the batter turned golden and the clam inside stayed tender. A pail of clams cost nothing if you dug them yourself. If you bought them, about $1 for enough to feed a family. The clams were eaten standing up, straight out of the paper bag they came in, with a squeeze of lemon and a dollop of tartar sauce. Summer dinner on the coast of New England was fried clams and a cold beer for the adults, and lemonade for the children. Then the coastlines got developed, the tidal flats got polluted, and the clam shacks became expensive. A plate of fried clams on Cape Cod now costs $32. A pail costs nothing, if you can still find a flat to dig. Number 3. Bluefish baked with potatoes. Bluefish was considered trash fish by most of America in the 1950s. It was too oily, too strong, too cheap. Families along the Atlantic coast knew better. They filleted it, laid it over sliced potatoes and onions in a baking dish, topped it with butter and lemon, and baked it for 30 minutes. The bluefish flavor, which horrified people who had never tried it, was rich and deeply satisfying. The potatoes soaked up the oil from the fish and turned golden and crispy at the edges. A whole bluefish cost 50 cents. The dinner fed 8 people. This was the dish that the Baltimore widow made every Friday for 11 years. Her grandson, the cardiologist, told the congregation at her funeral that he had never prescribed anything in 40 years of practice that worked better than her Friday night supper. Fish oil, vegetables, nothing processed, nothing refined. Now you know what he was talking about. Number 2. Creamed chipped tuna on toast, a dish that a generation of American men were embarrassed to admit they loved. Canned tuna simmered in a white sauce made from butter, flour, and milk, served over toast. It was cheap, it was fast, it was filling. It was the breakfast of the American military during the Korean War, and soldiers came home unable to stop eating. Mothers made it for their sons. Sons made it for their wives. A can of tuna, a cup of milk, 2 pieces of toast, less than 30 cents. Enough to feed a working man until lunch. In 2018, a celebrity chef in New York put a version of this dish on his menu for $60. He called it a reimagining. The Korean War veterans who grew up on the real thing called it dinner. Number 1. The can in the back of the cupboard. There is no single dish at number 1 because the greatest forgotten fish dinner of the 1950s was not any one recipe. It was the can of salmon or tuna or mackerel that sat in every pantry in America, waiting to become whatever the family needed that night. A patty, a loaf, a casserole, a sandwich. The can was the emergency meal, the end of the week meal, the Friday meal, the we have nothing else meal. And it was always there. A can of salmon cost $0.25. A can of tuna cost a dime. A can of mackerel cost a nickel. Every American kitchen had 3 or 4 of them in the back of the cupboard at all times. When the paycheck ran out, when the week ran long, when the unexpected guest arrived, the can was the answer. That can has disappeared from most American kitchens. And the quiet security it represented, the knowledge that no matter how bad the month got, dinner was already in the cupboard, has disappeared with it. Here is my challenge. Buy 1 can of something this week. Salmon, tuna, mackerel, sardines. Whatever is cheapest at your store, put it in the back of your cupboard. Forget about it. And on the night when you come home tired and broke and wondering what to make, open it up, mash it with a cracker and an egg, fry it in a pan. Remember that for an entire generation of American families, this was not a backup plan. This was dinner. Drop the fish dish your family was known for in the comments. I want to know if the tuna noodle casserole gets more love than the salmon patties. I want to know if anyone else's grandmother made fish head soup and nobody believed them. Because these were not just cheap meals. They were proof that the hungriest decade of the 20th century knew how to eat better on pennies a day than most of us manage on $100 a week.